What's up, Sports Wars? It's Jeremy coming to you with another, what are we, live streaming? I don't know. We were recording a meeting, and I said, hey, guys, can I turn the camera on and we talk about some college football? Because the college football season is coming up, so that's exactly what we're doing. I am joined by former Jacksonville Jaguars football player. Yeah, we have a football player on our staff, Uche Nwaneri. Did I say it right? What's
up? You said it right. All right.
All right. Because we got in a little argument, and I told him, I said, "Look, Ooch, don't let me fuck you up, bro. Look, man, I'm a gamer. All right, we're a lot tougher than NFL offensive linemen, anyway." And we're joined by our college football extraordinaire because he's an Alabama fan, Tommy. What's up, Tommy?
Hey, what's up? But I'll be honest with you, I'll take both of you guys down, so it doesn't really matter.
So we're gonna kind of talk about the college football season and some of the stories that are going around. I think the first thing I want to talk about is one thing that a lot of people are curious about, and that's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, the former Alabama quarterback, had an amazing record at Alabama, and a lot of people look at that and go, well, he was on Nick Saban's team, and he was kind of a system quarterback, but he obviously is great ability to escape, pressure and everything like that. But he won a lot of football games. Ultimately, he was replaced by Tua, and Tua went on to do great things. So now Jalen finds himself in Oklahoma, and a lot of people are curious: is he going to do, what Baker did? Is he going to set records? Is he going to win Heisman trophies? Is he going to do what Kyler Murray did? So, Tommy, let me toss that over to you. What are your expectations for Jalen Hurts, being an Alabama fan as you are? And obviously, you and I both respect Jalen Hurts immensely because he's a great guy. We never thought he was a standard prototypical quarterback because he wasn't. He couldn't throw the football well, but this dude is such an amazing person, and his leadership ability is off the charts. So what do you think about his future in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think that he's actually got a really bright future. People have him forecasted for the Heisman race this year, and I think that's fair. He's going to thrive in that system with Lincoln Riley there. I think that they've got a different type of quarterback in Jalen Hurts than they're used to, though, because it seems to me a little bit that the media has forgotten just sort of the type of player Jalen Hurts is. He's a run first, throw second. And the thing about it is that he always had Alabama's defense to fall back on. Oklahoma's defense has been horrendous the past few years, awful. So that's one of the issues that they're actually working on right now. And I forget the defensive coordinator's name they brought in. It just escapes my mind right now. I mean, they have high hopes there in Oklahoma. They're definitely working on that aspect of the game. But I think that Jalen Hurts is going to have to do a lot more this year to win. And I think that, one of the things that's going to hinder him is – his Heisman chances, if you want to talk about that, is the story. The story won't be complete by the time the Heisman voting comes to pass. So the story for Jalen Hurts, the thing that might get him into the Heisman conversation really is the fact that he might be able to do the one thing that the past two Heisman winners haven't, and that is get them to a national championship and potentially win it. So I think that's, the big, story to watch with Jalen. He did improve his passing game last year towards the tail end of last year with Dan Enos. I mean, we saw that in the Georgia game. He was throwing some incredible passes, but he's always been a run first, pass second. I'd have to see just a completely different aspect of his game to think that he's anything different than that. I think that maybe he just added a few tools in there, and he should do well in the system, but it's going to be interesting to watch what happens when he doesn't have the Bama defense to fall back on.
Excellent points. Ooch, what you think?
Being as that I'm not a huge Bama fan, I can look at, what they've done in Oklahoma and say that any quarterback you have in Oklahoma system is going to have an opportunity to thrive just because they've always been historically a very versatile offense. They can get under center and run the ball if they need to. They can sit back in the shotgun. They can go read option. They can get you over the top because they usually have speed on the outsides. And, as a quarterback who is probably more suited to a read option style offense where he's not forced to make a lot of deep throws and he doesn't have to worry about having to read too much into the coverages that he goes against, I think that you can probably more or less rely on his athletic ability in order to carry the day whenever things get tight. And, that makes him, lethal from a number of different perspectives, because he can have a short passing game. You can have a dual threat with the read option. And obviously Oklahoma is going to, Oklahoma has the kind of offensive minds that they'll find things that work best for him and try to exploit those on the field.
Yeah, and those are good points too. And I think basically the point that you're kind of making, Uche, is that it's the Big 12. Now, while Alabama's defense is obviously something that Jalen Hurts relied upon big time to get him to that record, that amazing starting record that he had, that win-loss record. There's no defense in the Big 12. It's not just Oklahoma. So he's going to have an opportunity to thrive in that conference because there's not really top-tier defenses. Whether you love or hate the SEC, you have to admit that the defenses are really good in the SEC and have a real good scheme, and they're really close to a pro-style defenses over there. And but in Oklahoma, it's going to be like Tecmo Bowl. It's going to be just throwing long Hail Marys. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a big year. I really do. I don't think he's going to do what Kyler or Baker did per se, because those incredible numbers that they put up. But I do think Jalen Hurts is going to thrive out there. So it's going to be really interesting. As a Bama fan, and I know Tommy feels the same way, I wish him nothing but the best. I think Jalen Hurts is a great guy, and I want to see the guy succeed, absolutely. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about is something that Colin Cowherd brought up yesterday. Now, I'm a fan of Colin Cowherd, but Colin Cowherd, look, there's a reason why he has a number one show in sports radio, is because he knows how to get the topics churning. I mean, he is brilliant at this. He made in my opinion, the ridiculous claim that Clemson has an opportunity to be the greatest college football team of all time this year.
Wow.
Individual season, because in his opinion, Trevor Lawrence is the greatest quarterback prospect he has ever seen in his lifetime. Now, Colin tends to do this a lot. Every time there's a nice, awesome quarterback, he loves to say they're the greatest quarterback ever, the greatest quarterback ever. Like Tommy said when we were talking prior to the show, they were saying this about Tua last year because of what Tua did in the national championship game just the previous year. He was the greatest prospect ever. And I think Tua is a great prospect. I do think Trevor Lawrence is a great prospect. I think Trevor Lawrence is the best prospect in college football right now to move on to the NFL based on his size, based on his mechanics, and based on everything like that. I also think Tua is right there with him, but I would say if I'm looking at it objectively, I would say Trevor Lawrence is definitely the best NFL prospect that we have in college football. But let's slow down a little bit on this greatest of all time nonsense.
We're talking about a lot of names he has to hop over to get that kind of title.
I know. I mean, all right, so Tommy, you were I hate to remind you of this, but you were at the national championship game last year. I was supposed to be there with you, and I declined at the last second, and I'm glad I did. But so in that game, we saw Trevor Lawrence do some good things, but you and I both know that Trevor Lawrence didn't just dominate that game on his own. There were a lot of mistakes on Alabama's side. So what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, Trevor Lawrence I was just making sure I wasn't on mute there. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So Trevor Lawrence is an incredible prospect. I mean, let's just admit what it is. But like I said, they were saying the same thing about Tua last year, the exact same talking points. Greatest ever, can't miss prospect, all that stuff. I mean, Trevor Lawrence threw for 3,200 yards, but he only had like a 157 passer rating for the year. And now, this is kind of goes back to the point I was making about Jalen. When he needed to show up, he showed out on the big stage. But you go back and watch that game. I mean, I couldn't see it from the stands, but when I went back and watched the game, I was like, man, look at all these blown assignments. Look at all these amazing grabs by these receivers, one-handed snags, reaching back snags. The ball was in the general vicinity, you know what I mean? It was just kind of like in the area where it needed to be. And, I mean, some of that, like Justin Ross catching a bobble catch one-handed on the sideline. I mean, those are the type of things that people remember. But when you actually just try to get to, like, is this the greatest quarterback we've ever seen? I mean, he's got more to prove. And then in that saying, where's Clemson as far as like the greatest team of all time? I think that we've got a little bit more to see there.
Right?
Yeah. And I agree. The guy has a lot of the desirables as far as his attributes go. Throwing the ball, he's got great size. But like you said, when a receiver has to make a spectacular catch, generally that means it wasn't a great throw. Usually the throw is in the vicinity, and a receiver's having to, and more of it is based on the talent of the receiver than necessarily the accuracy of the pass. And I mean, come on, let's be real. Clemson, they got the national title. They thoroughly, and soundly beat Alabama. But I mean, are you going to put that team up against Reggie Bush's USC? Are you going to put that team up against Vince Young's Texas? Are you going to put that team up against Eric Crouch, Tim Couch, all these great college football teams that played in an era where you have, all-time greats that they had to play against, guys who ended up being Hall of Famers in the NFL? I just don't see that as something you can't say it, because there's a difference between the teams that play now in this offense-oriented football universe and the teams that played 5, 10, 15 years ago in the football world that was more level in terms of, you have great offenses going against great defenses. You have, classic matchups where, I mean, hell, we remember, what was it, an LSU game about a decade ago that was 7, 8 overtimes? Like, you have these games that, it was a different style of play then than it is necessarily now. Now the game is more geared towards scoring points, getting, teams being able to put up 30, 40 points a game. And Alabama made a lot of mistakes in that championship game, and they took advantage of it, and they were able to get a sound win against them. But to look at the Clemson team as it sits now and say it can be considered the best college team ever is ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that one of the things you bring up a good point, because you think about like the 2009 Alabama team. They're the team that knocked off Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
That was a team that I would put up against this Clemson team, or the Clemson team from last year. I think that would be, more of a game than we saw in January.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Clemson could get anywhere close to beating the USC team that Pete Carroll had. I mean, those guys had studs on offense and I mean, it was unbelievable. And even that team took a fall when they went up against competition like Vince Young, a player who brought a different dynamic to the game. They had to defend something that they generally didn't have to defend at their time at USC. So, there's so many variables between so many great players that it just doesn't make sense to say that because they beat and dethroned Alabama that now they can be considered the greatest team of all time. I mean, that wasn't the greatest Alabama team of all time. We know that.
Yeah, and let's just call it what it is. I won't go back to the argument of Alabama was tired, but, you cannot look at these two teams and objectively say that they had the same path to that game. Before we go calling a team the greatest team of all time, I think they probably need to step it up, and we need to see a little bit more of competition first. I mean, they played Pitt in their conference championship, and then they basically had a week off when they played Notre Dame. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was sitting in the third quarter, I think it was. I mean, it was like a bye, and they have admitted that the stories have come out that they started prepping for Alabama at the beginning of the college football playoffs. So when you can do that, it's almost like having a month off, like the BCS national championship again. It's just it's a different measuring stick that you have altogether.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. And I mean, just like we live in such a reactionary state with everybody. I mean, and Uche, I'm not bringing this name up for an argument with you. Okay, I'm not.
No,
we all know that I think Tim Tebow is the greatest football player of all time. Okay, but I have not said that there was another prospect that I believed was as good as him. And then Tua last year. Now, Tommy can confirm this. I love Jalen Hurts. All right, so when he was winning games, and he was the top guy. We saw Tommy and I. We had a few games where Tua came in, and we were just like, this guy's incredible. I mean, he's absolutely incredible. And I was calling for Tua all year long. Even when Jalen was winning games for us, we were winning ugly on offense. And when Tua finally took over, I said to start the last year off, I was like, I think Tua has the ability. I didn't say he would be. I just said, I think Tua has the ability to become the greatest college football player I've ever seen. I mean, just for what he brings, the leadership. He's a good guy. He's a good family guy. He's just got good morals. He's got amazing talent. The thing that worried me about Tua, there's two things that worried me about Tua, and his injury. He's a little injury prone, it seems like. He's got some soft knees.
Yeah.
Typically, Nick Saban does not like a quarter, and this is exactly what happened in the national championship game, by the way. Nick Saban does not like a gunslinger. He likes a guy who's going to be very conservative and
manage the game
by the numbers. And when you have a guy like that, which Tua is, a Brett Favre style, a Michael Vick style, somebody that can just light the world on fire, but at the same time he can make a couple of mistakes that can blow the doors off of your game plan. And that's the big problem in Saban's system with Tua. And I just think he made some early mistakes in that game. He threw a pick six, and that kind of got him off of their game. But my overall point is we live in this reactionary thing, and Philip Rivers said this today. And while I don't agree with his overall point, I do agree with specifically what he was saying. He was talking about when the Patriots beat the Seahawks, and Malcolm Butler got the interception. And because Malcolm Butler got the interception, the Patriots won their fourth Super Bowl. Suddenly the media goes, oh, Tom Brady's the GOAT now because he won a Super Bowl. But he's like, so because Malcolm Butler doesn't make that interception, does that change how Tom Brady played in the game? Because he still played a fantastic game.
Yeah.
But if Malcolm Butler doesn't get that interception, suddenly we're not having the conversation that Tom Brady's the GOAT. We're saying, oh, Tom Brady lost another Super Bowl. But in reality, that specific play, while Brady had a lot to do with getting them to that point, that specific play determined the discussion that we're having about the greatest of all time. And it's kind of crazy. And I think he's right about that. So here we are with Trevor Lawrence. And again, I think he's a fantastic prospect. I think he's definitely the best prospect in college football for going to the next level. But greatest of all time, let's slow the hell down.
I mean there's Peyton Manning. I mean,
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who is the toughest team that Clemson's going to have on their schedule this year in the regular season, Tommy?
Probably Texas A&M. They're trying to pump up this Syracuse game. The media is because that was the and Dabo Swinney said that was our toughest game last year. Well, you know what? That's because that was Trevor Lawrence's first game and he got knocked out. You know what I mean? So of course it was your toughest game, and that's pretty.
Yeah.
But Texas A&M is probably the toughest game that's the one to circle, I would say. So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of little issues that are out there, and that is, do you guys think Jim Harbaugh? Do you think he's kind of on he's on the hot seat? Do you think
absolutely
he's on the hot seat? Okay.
Absolutely.
Jay, go with it.
Absolutely. Jim Harbaugh is absolutely on the hot seat, mainly because he hasn't done really much of anything different for Michigan than his predecessors have. And at the end of the day, a lot of what is judged for Michigan in the Big Ten is whether they beat Ohio State. And they can't beat Ohio State. They're not good enough to beat Ohio State. And like I said, I've looked at Michigan, and when Jim Harbaugh signed with Michigan and took over as head coach, I kind of had higher expectations. I thought that Michigan would turn into a more pro-style offense, and they would recruit players based on a pro-style system. I mean, he's coming from the NFL, and the NFL, it's funny, the way that offenses are run, they're a bit more complex in terms of in the way that the terminology is presented on what players are supposed to understand and what things change plays as far as checks go. But the basic understanding of pass protections, play actions, scheming against defenses and coverages, it really doesn't change, because both in the NFL and in college, you're seeing a lot of cover 2, you're seeing a lot of cover 3, and then you got some man. But their recruiting didn't step up at all, which I was surprised at. I thought their recruiting would actually improve because of Jim Harbaugh, but it doesn't look like the recruiting actually stepped up at all. They're actually a level below Ohio State in every facet of a collegiate franchise, a collegiate team, and building it towards a championship caliber. But I would think that if he doesn't get the Big Ten title, then they'll fire him. I mean, they're not necessarily looking, I don't think, for a national title in Michigan right now, because they just really haven't had the consistency to warrant that kind of discussion. But for sure, their number one priority, and I mean, Urban Meyer's gone now, so their number one priority is to win against Ohio State and to take the Big Ten title. And I honestly don't see them doing it this year. And he's going to – I can make a prediction right now and say he'll be gone by the end of this season.
Interesting. Hot take. All right, so, Tommy, I know you've got to run, so I'm going to let you close this topic out, and then you can go ahead and leave the call. But so Jim Harbaugh, is he on the hot seat? And then when you're done with that, as you close out, I want you to give me your top 4 predictions for the college football playoff as you bounce.
Okay. Well, that's kind of like on the spot. I'll try to think of that.
That's what we do.
All right. I think Jim Harbaugh's on the hot seat to a degree. Look, I think Jim Harbaugh, I said this in one of the comments on one of my YouTube videos. I think Jim Harbaugh at Michigan is sexy. Okay. I think that's the media loves it. Recruits love it. It's got that high level appeal. I don't know who they get if they fire Jim Harbaugh, what kind of power hire they make. It's Michigan. You know what I mean?
Les Miles.
So I don't know. It's hard for me. I don't have a firm stance on that. I think it's going to be interesting to see. Les Miles
is the only name they can have they're replacing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Les Miles would be a nice name to bring in. I think that in that situation you could probably realistically do that.
Yeah.
This year I think they've got a lot of things they're looking forward to with Shea Patterson. I mean, he's in Heisman conversations, and Josh Gaddis being up there. I mean, Josh Gaddis has gone on the record and said that he conceptualized every Alabama offensive play last year. He's actually said that. So it's going to be, he's putting a big, okay, well, let's see what this guy can do kind of thing over his head. So that'll be interesting. I mean, on defense, they've got like 10 or 11 guys coming back that are veterans. So they've got
nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, that's true.
And their defense, it's not like their defense is a top-tier defense. It's not.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have veteran leadership, I guess, come back to a degree. It just depends on what they can do with it, really. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. At the end of the day, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he got fired, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he was able to eke out another year or so, a year or two of mediocrity just off his name alone. It'll be interesting to watch. So what was the other thing? Just determining who's going to go to the college football playoff?
Yeah, your top 4. And you're not going to be held accountable to it, but this is kind of just this on-the-spot thing because I haven't really put a lot of thought into it either. There's obviously 2 teams that we're all going to be able to pick that's kind of locks at this point, and then there's only going to be 2 more that's really going to be up for debate, I feel like. Yeah. Because I'm a Clemson Bama guy, obviously. I just think you're kind of – unless you're trying to do a hot take, you pretty much got to pick them 2. You know what I mean? And then after that, it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. This is off the top of my head. Mine is Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and here's my hot take: Michigan.
Yeah, that's what
without Urban Meyer at OSU. I think there's an opening there. That's where I'm looking at. So
yeah, honestly, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Because of the fact that Ryan Day, I've been watching his interviews and. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at with Ryan Day. He's got his super relaxed, laid back, chill type of vibe, coaching vibe. Like he's setting up his office where the players can just kind of walk in and mosey back and forth and hang out and watch TV. And he's just going to be over there in the corner doing work. And I don't know. I guess that's cool.
Players coach.
Yeah. It's a players coach. But you look at the guys who have been highly successful in college football and they're not like that, So it's one of those things.
Pete Carroll was a player's coach.
Yeah.
Arguably the best college football team of all time he coached.
Yeah,
I would argue
I'm
that.
glad I'm getting off of this string.
Look,
Yeah,
I'll give you my top 4 real quick. Don't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off at all, Tommy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree. I do think that by default, you do have to give Clemson and Alabama their free pass at the preseason. Making this pick in the preseason, yes, you do have to give them a pass into the game, into the big show. But I am going to go for my 3 and 4. Ooh, I'm going to go with LSU.
LSU's got a lot of people coming back.
With one loss to Alabama. I'm going to go with LSU, and my dark horse, looking at this top 25, I'm going to say Texas A&M.
Ooh, so that means Texas A&M may so you're saying Texas A&M will probably run a close game with Clemson and lose close, and they'll get some good points for that.
The last 2 into the playoffs are going to be one-loss teams. It's going to be and it's going to be one loss to the top 2 teams.
Well, hang on now. So let me think about you bringing 3 SEC teams into it, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Georgia. Georgia was the other one I was thinking for number 4. I'd be really surprised to see A&M because I'd have to look at their schedule again, but I think they got a pretty tough road.
Yeah, but everybody in the SEC is going to have brutal games.
Yeah, but I think Texas A&M plays Clemson, Alabama. They might play Georgia.
I just want to be on record. A non-SEC guy just said that, okay? Because I know everybody says Sports Force is SEC. All that. Uche is not an SEC guy.
No,
okay,
I'm Big Ten all the way. I'm Big Ten.
Hates SEC.
But I do recognize that division is head and shoulders the cream of the crop as far as college football goes. I'll put the Big Ten as a somewhat close second division behind that because it's mainly because the competition is fierce between every team each week. There's not necessarily a gimme in any one of those divisions when you look at their in-conference play. I mean, LSU is going to be a tough team. It doesn't matter what anybody says. LSU and Georgia are going to fight tooth and nail for the top spot in the SEC with Alabama. And on the other side, it's going to be in Ohio State. I mean, honestly, if Purdue might be involved in it, don't forget they have the best wide receiver in the country on their team, and they did beat OSU at the number 2 spot last year. So the Big Ten there's a couple of upsets that can happen in the Big Ten, and then next thing you know, maybe you see Penn State or Purdue fighting late to take the Big Ten title. So there's a number of different scenarios, but the SEC is absolutely going to have at least 2 teams in the playoff, and if it comes down to a battle of 1 losses, how can you give any other team from the Big Ten or any team from the Pac-12 the ticket into the playoffs over a 1-loss LSU to Alabama? You know what I mean? It just you can't give it to them because they're playing the top-tier talent, top-tier team, and that's their only loss of the year. Then they should get in.
Tommy?
Yeah, if there's 1-loss SEC teams, it's going to come down to head-to-head. I mean, like Texas A&M, listen to this. They got to play Clemson, Alabama, Georgia. They got to play Clemson, Alabama, and then Georgia and LSU in back-to-back weeks.
Wait a minute. They got to play Georgia?
Where are they playing?
Yeah, I have to look that up.
Because that matters. If those are home games, Texas A&M is a very, very hard team to play at home.
They are a good home team.
Yeah, they are. It's a rough schedule though. I mean, they got Auburn in there, and we'll see what Auburn is. I mean, they got Bo Nix. They're super high on him, but he's a freshman. But who was that Auburn had that quarterback a few years ago? And they're like, he's the next Cam. What was his name? I don't remember.
You know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. You don't remember.
Turned out to be a flop. All right, Tommy, you got to bounce.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, man.
Good talk, y'all. We should do this again. So, we'll see y'all around.
All right,
yes, sir. Be good.
So we're gonna we'll probably close this out here. Here in the next few minutes. There's, like I said, it was kind of an impromptu show, but I
For
figured
sure.
it was a good little discussion we can have, tackle a few of the, bigger topics within college football right now. We're obviously going to bring a lot more content here to Sports Wars, though, on the NFL side and the college football side, along with Ryan.
Absolutely.
Ryan's doing a great job with baseball. Uche being a former NFL player, he's definitely going to be bringing a lot of opportunities to the table for us. You might actually see us covering some games, some actual NFL games in person down the road.
Mhm.
So that's really an exciting prospect going on. So, Uche, you've got your own channel, The Observant Lineman. Why don't you talk to everybody and kind of talk about a few of the things that you're trying to develop over there on your own personal channel, and we will leave a link in the description below.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. The Observant Lineman. Yeah, that's my channel. Right now, featuring most of my content around NFL news, NFL happenings, but also looking to kind of evolve the channel as I kind of, get my bearings with it. I'm getting a little bit better at everything that I'm doing within the channel right now. And I'm looking to kind of branch it out into more of a more all-encompassing channel about things that I like. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm a big comic book fan. I love movies. I love video games. I actually did my first live stream playing some Madden today earlier. So, the channel is in its infancy, but I'm looking forward to growing it into something big. And a lot of that has to do with my affiliation and my connection with you guys at Sports Wars and Geeks and Gamers. So really looking forward to continuing to grow on that in that respect. But like Jeremy said, I'm really excited about what's going on with Sports Wars. I'm really excited what's going on with Geeks and Gamers, and I think that as long as we continue to grow and we just build on our content week in and week out, the sky's the limit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. So, all right. So that's going to wrap it up. So for Tommy and for Uche, I've been Jeremy, your host. It's been a lot of fun. Football season's right around the corner. We're all excited.
Here we go.
Wait, I'm ready. I'm ready. So thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Uche's channel. And we will talk to you later.
Peace.
Hey everyone, it's Jeremy from geeksandgamers.com, and if you're a fan of Geeks and Gamers, please go to our website, visit our merchandise store. We have t-shirts, hoodies, hats, beanies, tank tops, and in the very near future, we're going to have many more products for you to choose from. So thank you for the support. We appreciate it. You guys have a great day, and we will talk to you later.